In this movie, we're going to expand these green shapes in order to create this white one, and we're going to do so using a special scaling function known as offset path. And so I'll go ahead and switch over to my base star flower, and just to demonstrate why the scale tool is not the solution in this case, I'll go ahead and select one of these green shapes, and then I'll go up to the control panel and click the Select Similar Objects icon in order to select all of these guys. And if for some reason that doesn't work, then you can click this down pointing arrowhead and choose All or Fill Color. Either one's going to be fine. All right, now that I've selected all of the green paths, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate them onto this back layer. So you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and unlock that layer, twirl open the layer, and lock the rectangle instead, like so. All right, now to duplicate these paths, I'll just go ahead and Alt or Option drag that red square until it becomes an orange square on the back layer, like so. And you can see now we've got a bunch of green shapes. I'm going to make them white so we can see the difference by clicking on the first color swatch up here in the control panel and changing it to white. That's not going to make any difference on screen right now because the white shapes are covered up with the green ones. But we'll be able to see things in just a moment after I select the Scale tool from that same flyout menu that contains the Shear tool, or you can just go ahead and press the S key. All right, now just to make sure I'm doing things properly, I'll twirl this back layer closed and I'll turn the guides layer back on so I can see my center guides right there. And I'll Alt or Option click at the intersection of those two center guides to bring up the Scale dialog box. And then I'll start with a uniform value of 100%. And I'll press Shift up arrow in order to increase it to 110%. And you can see that this does not give me the right effect at all. We're getting this kind of tapering right here in the corners, and then the shapes expand at the tips of each one of the 5 petals. If what you really want to do is expand the path outlines uniformly, then you need to switch to the Offset Path command. And let me show you what that looks like. I'll go ahead and cancel out, and I'll press the backspace key or the delete key on the Mac in order to get rid of those duplicate paths. And I'll press the V key to switch back to my black arrow tool, click on one of the green paths once again, and then click on a Select Similar Objects icon up here in the control panel to select all 5 of them. Now you want to go to the Object menu, choose Path, and choose this guy right here, Offset Path. So it's a hard command to find, and it's not arranged with the other transformation functions. And that's because, as the logic goes, it's more of a stroke function. So notice we have outline stroke, which does just that. It takes stroked outlines and it converts them to filled paths. The other option, though, is to build a kind of stroke on the fly using the Offset Path command. So go ahead and choose that command and then enter an offset value. And by default, you're going to see an offset of 10. Go ahead and turn on the preview checkbox and you'll see how the path builds outward 10 points, like so. If you wanted it to go inward instead, you could enter a negative value, such as -10, and that'll move the edges inward. The value I'm looking for, however, is 24. So I'll just enter an offset value of 24 points. We don't care about the joins, by the way. They're all miter joins as things stand. You could round them if you want to by selecting round, and notice that goes ahead and rounds all of those corners. But miters are going to work out just fine. We don't need to worry about the miter limit because we're not getting any beveling. So I'll just go ahead and click OK in order to apply that effect. And what's just happened there, by the way, if I press the backspace key or the delete key on the Mac in order to get rid of the new shapes, you can see that the old shapes are still intact. And that's because the Offset Path command always scales a duplicate. All right, I'll go ahead and undo the deletion of that duplicate, and I'll change the fill color to white, like so. And now I'll go ahead and move these guys onto the back layer by dragging this little red square on the right side of the Layers panel down to the back layer, at which point it'll turn gold, and you'll see those white shapes moving behind the green ones. All right, we still have some holes here and there, and we have too many intersecting paths. So let's clean things up by bringing back up the Pathfinder panel, which I can get by clicking on this Pathfinder icon right there. And then I'll unite everything by clicking on the very first icon in the first row. And that's going to result, by the way, in a compound path, as we can see on the far left side of the control panel. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hide the Pathfinder panel, and I will dissolve the compound path because, after all, I don't want to see any of these holes, by going up to the Object menu, choosing Compound Path, and then choosing Release. And then finally, what you want to do is just shift-click on this outside path to deselect it and press the backspace key or the delete key on the Mac to get rid of all the internal paths. All right, now I'm going to hide the guides layer once again because it's distracting, and I'll select this outermost path, and then I'll go up to the Effect menu, choose Stylize, and choose Drop Shadow to bring up the Drop Shadow dialog box. These are the default settings, by the way. Mode set to multiply, doesn't really matter. Opacity set to 75%. Both X and Y offset are 7 points, and the blur is 5 points. That works out just fine for me, so I'll just turn on the preview checkbox in order to see that shadow form in the background, and then I'll click OK to accept that effect, and I'll click off my paths in order to deselect them. And that, folks, is how you uniformly scale a shape, either to make it smaller with a negative value or larger with a positive value, using the Offset Path command here inside Illustrator.